Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our attendees from across the globe. We are going to get started with the webinar, Decoding SAP S4HANA System Conversion. My name is Kirtan, and I am the Marketing Coordinator here at CAR Technologies. Thank you all for joining us today. A few things to note before we get started. We'll be sending out a link of the recording after this webinar to everyone who has registered. And you have been muted on entry, so please ask your questions via the questions tab and we'll address them at the end. Before we get into the webinar, here's a brief introduction about CarTech. We are a pure-play SAP software and services partner with 12 plus years of experience, and we have completed around 1,400 SAP implementations for 250 plus customers across the globe. We specialize in the current SAP digital solutions like SAP S4HANA, SuccessFactors, and Cloud ERP. We also focus on the new age solutions like SAP C4HANA, Analytics Cloud, and Cloud Platform. We have also won several SAP Quality Awards for our implementation, including 3 in the recently announced SAP Quality Awards. Now, I'll hand this out to our speaker for today, Ms. Vaidehi Srinivasan, who will conduct this webinar, Decoding SAP S4HANA System Conversion.
Thank you, Kirtan. Hello, everyone. This is Vaidehi Srinivasan, and I would be walking you through decoding S4HANA in the next 45 minutes to 1 hour. And we will cover a variety of topics, primarily what is S4, why you should step into the S4 journey, the paths that would take you to the destination, and what you can expect in a typical S4 conversion project, and the challenges, the lessons learned, and the observations that we have from the projects that we have done. Thanks again for taking the time, and we'll ensure that you leave this session with a fairly good understanding on all these topics. A little bit about myself. I have over 25 years of SAP experience. I've worked on pretty much every aspect of SAP from the technical arena. And in the last 4 to 5 years, I've concentrated on digital transformation projects, solutioning around them, and on S4, the conversions and the integration to other third-party products. So let's step into the webinar and get started. A quick recap on where we are with respect to SAP ERP product line. I believe if I walk you through the product line over the years, this will give us a perspective on where we are compared to where it's all started. So starting from R2 in the early 70s, into the R3 in the early 90s, and then into the My SAP suite of products in 2004. Up until now, everything was pretty much the same with respect to the SAP application. And then SAP HANA as a database was introduced around 2011. And then SAP ECC was adaptable on HANA. Up until then, ECC could run on multiple OSDB platforms. It still does. But then in 2013, it was possible to run ECC on HANA ECC on HANA. And with a particular EHP level, certain transactions could be accessed using Fiori. And that was a very rich user experience, which the early users of SAP were not used to. And up until now, the basic product was either R3 or ECC. So even though we had multiple EHP levels of ECC, the product was still the same. Come 2015, there was a new innovation of S4. What S4 brought in was a complete redesigned data structure and a lot of simplification of the business processes. And with S4, you were able to run it either on the cloud or on the on-premise. And that's where we stand today as we see how we can get into the S4 product line and how the transformation is going to be. Just migrating into S4 is only the beginning of the journey. What really is important is how you use S4 going forward. With SAP S4HANA, organizations start to modernize core backend systems of record into agile systems of innovation that can quickly adapt to changes in technology, markets, customer needs, and business models. This can only be achieved if you have a seamless integration of SAP S4HANA in-memory database, which speeds analytical processing with open source applications such as Hadoop, Python, and R. S/4HANA offers a library of whitelisted APIs that can be seamlessly integrated with open source platforms. These APIs let organizations pull data from core ERP processes, apply machine learning and analytical algorithms to them, and they return data, and decisions or tasks can be executed on the execution system itself. This helps manufacturers build intelligent solutions such as robotic processes automation, predictive modeling to enable predictive maintenance, intelligent scheduling and optimization logic for efficient capacity planning. Just getting into S4 is not the end state. There's a lot more that can be done once you've gotten into S4. So by moving on to this intelligent ERP, what do you get? Primarily, you are empowering every employee to make faster, better decisions. You eliminate technology hurdles that create business challenges. You deploy the power of AI to differentiate your business model, and you redeploy limited resources towards customer value. And this definitely goes about to reduce the IT cost. So this next generation intelligent ERP, a traditional ERP was primarily just doing recording data, processing this data, and then reporting on the results. Whereas the intelligent ERP does a lot more. What it primarily does is the way you enter data, how you get data into your transactional system could be through integration with IoT, and how you leverage the business networks. And on the processing level, you have automation and you're able to streamline the business processes. And you bring in machine learning algorithms as well. And on the reporting, you're able to do it real time. And you have real-time KPIs, which is available for all users. You're able to predict, simulate, and also do what-if analysis. So this is what gives an edge to customers once they move into the S4. At this point, we will introduce a quick question, so we would be able to align our discussion based on where you are in your S4 journey. Thank you. Moving on. So why is S4 so unique? Primarily, number one, it's optimized for SAP HANA. It has a completely new architecture and data model. You have a very Fiori-based user experience, and you have both cloud and on-premise deployment models as well. And obviously the integration to other cloud products, which brings in the intelligence into the system. So let's talk a little bit more about the evolution of S4 HANA architecture. So we are at 1809 now, but this was not on day one. Starting 2015, SAP worked to simplify each of the little areas within the S4. So what started as simple finance moved on to bring in a little more simplification in 1511, 1610, 1709, and then 1809. So we are at 1809 now, and you see a lot more integration to the cloud systems. Many APIs have been whitelisted, and it enables us to use these integrations with a lot more ease. All ECC customers who have started thinking about the move to S4 would have seen this image and its version many times over. And they're constantly debating whether it should be a new implementation, a system conversion, or a landscape transformation. Let's make this simple. Let's use the rule of elimination and pick the landscape transformation first. So who uses the landscape transformation? This is primarily for customers who have multiple ERP systems and also ERP and non-SAP systems. And they're trying to consolidate all this into a single S4 system. And these are also for customers who would like to carve out specific entities and processes and build a new S4 landscape. Now let's talk about the new implementation. New implementation is for customers who are starting net new on SAP products, or who would implement S4 and migrate their legacy data to a certain extent into the new S4. This is for customers who are on ECC, but they want to re-engineer their business processes and choose to go in for the new implementation. The biggest reason for greenfield is because with S4, we have the opportunity to redefine our business processes. So we've had customers who have been running on ECC for about a decade, but now are looking to go forward with a new implementation, wherein they decide to take go ahead with redesigned business processes and bring in some of the data, primarily the open transactions, and then start the new business. How we deal with the data in the backend system it can be taken up as a separate exercise depending on what part of the legacy data is required. So now, having ruled out the landscape transformation and the new implementation, we are left with system conversion. So who goes in for the system conversion? These are typically ECC customers who have been running ECC for a period of time, and they're currently happy with their business processes, and they want to take all of their data and configuration into S4. And once they've converted to S4, they start to see how they can optimize and use the efficiency and the simplification of S4. So this sounds simple enough, but how do we make the decision when each customer is so different? What you see here is on the left is your source system. Let's say you are on ECC, you could be on HANA or a non-HANA database. So if you want to go to the S4 HANA cloud as a new implementation, then that is the first path that you see there. And for the landscape transformation, again, you have multiple systems that you go to S4 HANA on premise. And if you're already on S4, maybe a simple finance or an earlier version of S4, then those customers are called conversion customers as well, because we convert the earlier versions of S4 into the latest version. And all the ECC customers, either on HANA or on non-HANA, get converted to S4. So these would be the typical transition path for any of the ECC customers that are available. So what is a greenfield implementation? Primarily, you start off, you install a new S4 system, and then you start using the new redefined business processes, and then bring in whatever open transactions that are required and move forward. And the greenfield can be both on-premise and on the cloud. So you have the S4 HANA cloud version available, and you also have the on-premise system where with the on-premise license, you're able to keep your HANA instance in your data center and operate. Having said that, you could also host this S4 HANA on-premise license with IaaS partners or on AWS, Azure, GCP, or any of your cloud providers. And the brownfield, also referred to as the conversion, this is a faster path to S4 HANA for existing customers, where there's low to moderate business process changes. And a lot of testing is involved. About 2/3 of your efforts would go into the testing, and you're able to go from as is on ECC to S4, and then try to enhance the S4 process. So this is easy to understand. So now you've made a decision from either on a new implementation or a system conversion, and then your destination options. Like I mentioned, it could be either on the cloud or an on-premise license, which you could host on HEC, AWS, GCP, K-Cloud, or any of the partners available who host your SAP solutions. What you see right now is the top 10 factors that influence a customer's S4 HANA conversion decision. The first column gives you the influencing factors, and we have listed 2 customers that we have worked with, and what were their responses for having chosen either the conversion or the new implementation journey. If you look at this, you would see that the duration of an S4 conversion definitely is lesser than a new implementation. And when you do the conversion, it's definitely a big bang approach. You don't decide to simplify, convert certain processes or certain data. It is a big bang approach where you take your entire ECC system with all the data, the configuration, and move on to S4. And the skills that are required for the conversion are both technical and functional, because that S4 conversion is more a functional upgrade than a technical upgrade. From our experience, I can cite 3 reasons for why a system conversion is more complex than it appears. The system conversion is not like a EHP upgrade or a technical upgrade that the ECC customers have been used to doing in the past. And the reason 2, we end up replacing the operating system, the database, and also the application. And this has a lot more functional complexities than the technical roadblocks. Number 3, the system conversion process is complex because of the data migration that happens from the ECC data structure to the S4 data structure. And the checks that are done to ensure that all the data has been migrated from ECC to S4 is very critical to take it forward. There are a lot of tools that are available to do this validation, and I will touch upon them later as we move forward. So how long does a typical S4 HANA migration take place? If you look at it, comparing a greenfield to a conversion, you see the conversion is about three months lesser than a greenfield project. But who are the customers who choose conversion? These are much larger customers who are willing to take all the data and move forward. This is based on analysis done in 2018. What you have up on the screen is a simple flowchart that will help you decide how you move forward. Let's take a sample customer who has his current processes and he wants to enable long-term strategy. If the answer to that is yes, then the next question I would ask him is, do you want your new processes? Do you want the reimagined business processes? And how many of those are there? If there are few, and if he's happy to stay with his current ECC processes, then he can step into S4 as a conversion. But if he has too many business models that have to be changed, then I would suggest that you would go for a new implementation. The reason being, if you're changing your configuration completely, then you would have to have a different set of discovery workshops to help you understand the existing business process that you have as against the S4 business processes. And then a new implementation is more realistic for you. And again, another question on the historical data. If you want to carry forward all your historical data, then a new implementation is not the choice for you. Reason being, if you're going to set up a new S4 system and try to migrate, let's say, 10 to 12 years of data, that becomes a very, very cumbersome task. So 3 questions. One is about the historical data, the second about the business processes, and the new business model. How ready the customer is to adapt all this. We'll take a quick questioning at this point, and I'll open it up to the poll. Thank you. To the earlier question on what is the plan to move to S4, we had about a 23% of our attendees saying that they plan to move to S4 in 2019-20, another 28% in 21-22, and about 39% have said that they don't have plans as yet. So that's just a quick recap on where we are, and so let's move on further now. So what we have here is, let's say the customer ECC, the prerequisites that is required for each of these transition paths. So the source system should be on ECC, but it could be at any EHP level, and the database could be on HANA or non-HANA. So there's no requirement that you have to be on HANA. The 2 requirements that have to be met is, first, you must be on Unicode. And the second one being the ABAP single stack is required. So if you've been using a dual stack of both ABAP and Java, we suggest that ahead of moving into S4, you convert that to a single stack and move the functionality that you've been using on the Java stack to any other system. And this is a prerequisite to move into 1809. And once you are on 1809, you are on HANA, and the operating system would be any flavor of Linux. Sorry. And if you're already on S4 or you're already on HANA, with 1809, there's a requirement that the HANA database should be on 2.0. So if you are on a 1.0 HANA database, we suggest that you make a database upgrade to 2.0 and then embark on the conversion journey. And one thing that I would like to mention here is any version of earlier S4 can directly jump into 1809 as long as the HANA database requirement is met. So let's assume you are an ECC customer on SAP HANA 1.0, suggest that you upgrade to 2.0 and then do the conversion. Or if you're already on S4 HANA with an earlier release, but still on HANA 1.0, then again, the database has to be 2.0 before you jump into 1809. This is a requirement only for 1809. So how do you go about handling a conversion project? Let's spend the next 10 minutes or so trying to understand how a typical conversion project would look like. What are the phases? What are the technical activities, and so on? Primarily, this follows the same SAP's Activate methodology. What you see on the screen is the transition to SAP S/4HANA roadmap, and I've structured it as a matrix of project phases on the x-axis and work streams on the y-axis. Each cell will then represent an activity which needs to be executed in the project as part of a certain work stream and within a certain project phase. Simple enough. The work stream then helps us define the players of that phase. If we can effectively put the entire list of conversion activities into the right cell in this matrix, then the conversion is already well begun. So what are the work streams that we have? The project management, the application solution adoption, the application design and configuration, analytics, custom code extensions, testing, application integration, system and data migration, technical architecture and infrastructure, and the transition to operations, because that's what you would need once you have converted. Let's just mention the main activities in each of these work streams. In project management, primarily the common project and quality management tasks, organizational change management, and the enablement of the project team. The solution adoption. This primarily focuses on the training strategy and the learning paths, the enablement of the end users, so they are ready to use the new S/4HANA solution. Design and configuration. This is where your fit gap analysis happens, wherein you understand the existing ECC process and see how it can be adapted for the S4. For system conversions, the data volume management is a key activity in this phase. Moving on to analytics, S4HANA has the embedded analytics, and you would already be using a different reporting strategy. So you would have to understand what are the analytics aspects that you currently have and how you can make use of the embedded analytics that's available in S4. Custom code extensions. This topic, I cannot stress enough on this. The existing custom code would need to be adjusted to function properly with S4HANA. Primarily, the steps involved are, we suggest, the cleanup of the unused custom code, the identification of the affected custom code in the productive use, the plan and execution of the necessary adjustment, and leveraging the full power of HANA by optimizing the code. Also trying to understand how you can use the S4HANA key user extensibility tools and the SAP Cloud Platform for extensions for those functionality that you want to customize S4HANA for. The testing work stream. This covers identifying the test scenarios, the test cases, the planning of the tests, the execution of all the tests, including the integration, regression, and the user acceptance. From our experience, we suggest that you run extensive performance tests on the production hardware with full load and on the final setup of the production hardware, because you don't want to be in for surprises when you do your ramp up and you realize that the production hardware is sinking. The integration workstream. This includes all the activities that ensure that the new S4HANA system is properly integrated to all the customer solutions. It could be SAP, non-SAP products, cloud solutions, and so on. Anything in the landscape that earlier ECC was connecting to. The system and data migration. This is planning and the setup of all the S4HANA system as copies of prod, because that's where you're going to do all your mock conversions, your development conversion, and your quality conversions. And also setting up the identifying the data migration activities, because data migration is a huge step post running the sum tool for the conversion. From our experience on S4 conversion, we suggest that all open development is saved and the development is overwritten with a copy of production. Some customers think twice about doing it, but from our experience, we understand that when you do this, you accomplish two things. One is post S4, you have your development and ECC, development and quality system as close to your production as possible. And the second one being, each of these mock runs will help you zero in on the downtime and also identify all the problems that you could possibly foresee in production. Because like I said, a conversion, most of the errors are not the technical errors. They are data-driven errors. And if you have run this conversion on copies of prod, you can rest assured that you've successfully fixed most of the errors before you touch the production. So the only delta that would be all the data, that transaction data that has gone into the production system since your last mock run. The technical architecture and infrastructure. This is primarily setting up your data center if you're doing it on-premise, and then setting up all the processes around that. And you may also consider connectivity to the SAP Cloud Platform at this stage. If you're hosting it on AWS, Azure, HEC, K-Cloud, GCP, or anything else, then you would also ensure that you get connected to that data center as well. Transition to operations. This is primarily post go live, how the project team is going to hand off all this knowledge to the operations team, putting the tools, putting the knowledge database in place before you go live. So that covers the activities along the work streams. Now let's look at the x-axis. This is primarily the activate methodology. So what happens in each of these phases? The discover phase, or the assess phase as we call it, is primarily to build a business case and get an approval to start the project. So the discover phase happens possibly a couple of months or even a quarter before you would actually start the project. And the more you invest on the discovery or the assess phase, it'll ensure that you have a much smoother conversion project. This will help you evaluate the complexity of the conversion and its feasibility as well. So what are the activities that you typically perform here? Along with your partner or your service provider, you sit and understand the overall strategy for this digital transformation. A high-level roadmap, a 3-year or a 5-year roadmap that tells you once you've gone to S4, what are the various innovations that you're going to do? How are you going to use the power of S4? Solution mapping. Primarily, solution mapping means the high-level areas of the existing solution landscape that can benefit from a move to S4. And then exploring the use of extensions that can be done on S4. And then evaluation of the impact of the technical architecture and the IT infrastructure, because most customers, when they embark on this S4 journey, they're still not on a HANA platform. So you would need to understand that a hardware refresh would be required at this stage as well. And one other main deliverable that is given as part of the assessment phase is a conversion L1 project and the resources required, both the resources from the service provider as well as from the customer, because we'll have to work hand in hand with the customer to ensure a successful journey. This phase could ideally be performed by service providers who have done multiple S4 conversions, as they understand the pain points and have tools and accelerators to perform the above set of activities. We have a tool, Ktern, which does a comprehensive discover assess plan, and the output that we derive from this analysis will help you take a business case for approval. Given the importance of this phase, we also recommend that you run certain pre-checks on a copy of production in your sandbox, and this will help you zero in on a more realistic timeline and resources required from the business and the IT during the conversion. Because the S4 conversion, it being a completely data-driven, functional-driven project, the more bottlenecks and the hurdles that you remove upfront will make the journey a lot smoother. So the prepare. So what do you do during the prepare phase? So this is the actual start of your S4 conversion. So here you have an L2 project plan, and you have all the strategies for the UI, for the infrastructure, the testing, the reporting, the cutover, governance. Everything is finalized in this phase. During the explore phase, you have a detailed design of the S4 solution. You run the fit gap workshops with your IT SMEs who understand the current ECC processes. You've done the custom code analysis with respect to S4. And then a technical design of the to-be solution is designed and documented. And a conversion on a copy of production is done during this phase. So this is going to help you remove all the bottlenecks and also be able to train the IT users. So by the end of the explore phase, all technical and functional aspects of the conversion are fully planned. Moving on to the realize phase. This is where you prepare the technical architecture and infrastructure and set them up for the S4 HANA conversion. And then you start running the conversion on copies of prod or for the development, QA, and multiple mock runs. What you analyzed on the custom code, the actual adjustment happens here. Some customers prefer to do this because some customers prefer to do this custom code adjustment in the sandbox itself. What is the advantage of doing this custom code adjustment in the sandbox? Number one, you're able to start this work early on, And then you can capture them in transports and move them into the development and change the ownership of these objects. So you save a lot of time by doing this ahead in the sandbox rather than in the development. Finally, end user training, including project specific training material, is also prepared here. During the deploy or the prepare to go live phase, we finalize the readiness of the S/4HANA and the business process for production go live, final testing, rehearsing the cutover during multiple mock runs, and finalizing the IT infrastructure operations. Also, the conversion of the production instance, the knowledge transfer and handoff between the projects team and the support team. It is very crucial that you hold on to the project team of your service provider or your partner who has done the conversion with you during the post go live, at least for a month or two, so that you're able to do successful month-end closes, be able to address the problems, because many of the problems that you would see post go live, the implementation, the conversion partner would have already seen it and he has a fairly good understanding. So what do you do in the run phase? This is the post go live phase. Here you start optimizing the operability of the S/4HANA, and the new SAP system is continuously updated, making the latest innovations from SAP available to the business. And then this innovation cycle starts again. So this kind of gives you the various activities that are performed in each of the phases under each of the work streams. In the next couple of slides, let's dig a little deeper. So we've come from the 50,000 feet all the way up to how a conversion project happens. So now we're going to look at the various tools that you would use in each of these phases. The tools that are used in the discovery or the assessment phase are primarily the maintenance planner, the SAP readiness check, the SAP transformation navigator, the SAP Fiori apps recommendation report, and also in addition to these, the workshops that you would do with the IT SMEs to help understand the current ECC process and make the process mapping. Also, studying the usage of the system helps identify the business scenario that have to be included in the test cycles. Partner tools are available that integrates all of this data and delivers one single assessment report that helps build the business case. We run our assessment reports using Ktern, which is being developed by Car Technologies, where the tool does a detailed study of the system and also consolidates all the above information into a comprehensive report. And this report is crucial for businesses to take to the board for approval to embark on this journey. Running the pre-check also in this phase helps you get a head start on the whole thing. Okay, these are some of the activities that would happen in the discover phase. So the technical and IT workshops, the functional workshops, and then strategizing and coming up with detailed strategy documents on the landscape and deployment, the dual development. So what is dual development? Primarily, when you're on a ECC landscape, you would have a dev ECC, QA ECC, and a production. Once you start a project, you need a separate landscape where you do your project, because you don't want to just go and convert your ECC development to S4. If you do that, what really happens is, let's say you have a production break and you want to fix it. You don't have a development system on which you can do the break fix. So we suggest that you leave your production support landscape as is, take copies of your development if you choose not to wipe out your development, or take copies of your production, build a new project landscape, and do your conversions there. The cutover strategy. Cutover strategy becomes very important for various reasons. The number one reason being that any ECC system is not a standalone. It has other systems that are connected to it. And you have an archiving and training strategy as well. So the deliverables from an discover phase, the business function and industry compatibility assessment, the business process impact analysis, the fit gap analysis, the business function and SAP add-on verification, and the simplification list. And we also provide a lot of housekeeping advisory, primarily around data archiving, table cleansing, code cleansing, and so on. Why this is important is because your downtime is determined by the size of your database, and all the landscape and infra considerations, and also the project considerations. So first, about the maintenance planner. This is a solution hosted on SAP portal. It simplifies the landscape maintenance process to update, upgrade, and install systems with ease by checking the system with regard to business functions, industry for solutions, and add-ons. So you input the details of your source system, put the required target system that you want to get to, and it creates the stack XML and also the download basket. And if there are any prerequisites that have to be met, it stalls you there. So you'll have to fix those before you move forward. The readiness check. The readiness check could be run by the customer themselves well ahead of time. So this primarily gives you answers around all these areas. The add-ons that you might have, the customer add-ons, any third-party add-ons or business functions, whether it's possible to use those and move forward, the sizing, what are the simplification items relevant for your systems, data volume management, and so on. What I really like to talk about here is the vendor add-ons. Many customers would have had third-party add-ons into their system, and you would have to get in touch with those third-party vendors well ahead of time, so they are able to provide you a new S4 add-on. So the rest of them are standard, and they're included in the assessment report as well. So now going on to the custom code check. Why is the custom code check very important? Traditionally, we have been using ECC systems, and all that was not available in ECC, we started to put in custom code there. So custom code meaning custom tables, custom transactions, custom programs, and so on. The approach is good, but what happened? The downside during a conversion is all these programs will have to be adapted to S4. SAP takes care of all the programs that belong to SAP, but anything that you have touched, that you have developed, it is your lookout. So why does this have to be done? Primarily because the data structure has changed. So if a data structure has changed, meaning the table is gone obsolete, or some fields have changed, then obviously all the references to those will have to be fixed. And how do you know what has to be fixed? That is provided to you through the simplification list and all the tools that you use during the prepare phase. So based on experience, we have found that about 20 to 30% of your ABAP code definitely needs to be adapted before you move to S4. So what are the various changes that happen? First one is the custom code evaluation, which tells you what needs to be changed. And then you have the SAP S4 HANA checks, which tells you all the changes with respect to the simplification. And then post go live, we also suggest that you start looking at the optimization of the custom code and tune the performance, because the code would still run as long as you've adapted the data structure changes. But you will have to definitely look at details on how the select clause has been used, whether you've used any native SQL in your custom code to ensure that the best performance is obtained. So post the preparation, you get into the pre-conversion preparation. This is where you start doing the conversion on a copy of your system. So you perform the cleansing activities, remove what is not required, run the readiness check, the maintenance planner, and the review the versions of the sum, the maintenance planner, and so on, and start looking at the to start the conversion. And once you have got all that ready, you start the pre-conversion configuration steps. These are a set of reports that are run in the source system on which you have run the simplification list. And this starts giving you a list of tasks that you have to perform. And each task will pop out with errors. So these are in the finance area, these are in the logistics area, and these are in the technical area. For example, the SDBI cluster check, SDBI pool check. These reports, because cluster and pool tables are not there anymore in S4. So it'll give you a pointer on what needs to be fixed. And the RSA fin migration pre-check, that's the FI pre-check report that you run. And the same on the logistics side. So these reports are run, and then you get all green before you step into the sum. The sum tool is the primary tool that is going to be used for the conversion, and it has two phases, one being the uptime and then the downtime. So what happens during the uptime? It creates the S4 instance on the HANA hardware, and then it creates a shadow instance, and it does a lot of processing even when your system is up. So typically, if you're going to have a downtime window from, say, Friday evening 5 p.m., we suggest that you finish all the activities that happen in the uptime by about Thursday morning. So that will still give you some time in case you run into issues. And then come 5 p.m. on a Friday, you get the business users off the system, and it starts the downtime processing. And it is at this time that all the sync happens between the source and the target system, and everything gets copied. What I would like to mention here is, this is just a copy of all the ECC tables, data, everything into the HANA, into the S4 database. And the actual data migration happens post that. And this happens in the S4 system. So there are a set of about 25 reports that have to be run within the S4 system, which talks about moving the transactions, the transaction of the line items, of your journal entries, of your material ledger, of your order history. Everything has to be copied into the S4 structure. So this is a very long drawn process, and this is one process which customers would have not experienced in EHP upgrades. So when you run this several times during your mock conversions, it becomes very clear that you're able to optimize the time, and you're able to run this in parallel processes depending on your power of your HANA database. And the one thing that is important is these will have to be run in sequence. So if you get stuck, you'll have to solve that issue. And it is very crucial that you have a very good connect with the business of the customer, because all the data-driven errors will have to be, you need the help of the business to resolve those errors, the data inconsistencies. And once the migration is done, you'll have to validate. So you'll have to ensure that all the data that you had in the source system has been copied, and you've not compromised on the data. Again, if you're to do this manually, it's going to take forever, and you have a very short cutover window. So tools are available, and these tools go about to identify the validation objects and validate on all these areas. So this is done at the business application layer. So this is not done at the database layer. So there is a logic behind how these validation objects are chosen, and we go in sequence, and the validation happens both on the finance and the logistics side. So if you see, it pretty much touches every area in the ERP system on where these validations will have to happen. So once these validation reports come back green, then you're good to go. So what is the approach for conversion that we take? We primarily take the lift and shift, meaning we take the ECC system as is, move it to S4. We only make changes where it is absolutely necessary, and if something has gone obsolete. Otherwise, we suggest this approach because it's reduced risk, less cost, and it gives you the least impact on business users. We don't go about to Fioriize all the available Fiori transactions, because it is not required, and it is not practical also. You want to keep this project simple. So do the minimal changes, take only those transactions that can be done only by Fiori, Fioriize them, and then you're able to deliver this project to the customers. So the customers, the business users end users don't see a lot of impact here. And you would expect about 20% process or transaction changes if you do it in this approach. But if you try to also include all the redesigning, remodeling, and you want to change your business processes, you should do that post stabilization after go live. So what are the common challenges? Many customers embark on this exercise with an incomplete assessment. So without that, you're kind of lost halfway within the project, because you find too many issues cropping up. And there are customers who think of S4 as more as an ECC with just the Fiori user interface. Like I said earlier, this is more a functional upgrade, functional conversion. So you would need to have very strong functional expertise working with you. And then underestimating the custom code remediation efforts. So first thing you'd want to do is, when you look at the ABAP code, you might have developed 10,000 ABAP objects. You don't have to fix all those. So get your statistics enabled to figure out how many of these are actually used. So that'll help you prioritize what needs to be remediated, because it's futile to go about to remediate an object that you've never used. So if you've done your analysis, if you've done your preparation well enough, then the custom code remediation efforts are not as complex. Also, change management and training. You'll have to ensure you have proper change management processes and policies built around it, because you don't want to be pushing new projects into your ECC landscape while the conversion is happening. New cost centers, new companies, and whatnot. If you do that, you're bound to fail because you're making the S4 project happen on a very fluid, not on a stable environment, because things change all the time. And also, again, it's more a functional upgrade than a technical upgrade. So going into lessons learned. On the pre-conversion, we suggest, I think I mentioned this before, keep a copy of your ECC development. Don't start converting the ECC development itself. Archive and purge data as much as possible, because the more you reduce your data footprint on your source, the conversion becomes a lot easier. Run the simplification check well ahead of time. Understand what each line item in the simplification check is telling you, because each one is a data business condition that will have to be met. And then making development as copies of prod, because that's going to give you a more close reference to prod once you go live. On the conversion, you might have run multiple mock conversions, but that does not mean your production conversion would take the downtime on that would take exactly the same time as you did for a mock, because you should remember that you might have done your mock maybe 3 to 4 weeks ahead of running your production, and then more transaction data has gone in. So please estimate that and be aware that it could take a little longer than what happens in your mock. And when you run the sum tool, the more power you get to the sum tool, it helps us because you're able to run parallel processing. And then reviewing the simplification report. Again, post-conversion, things that you would look at, need to understand is the stack should be frozen. You should have your pre-check report and so on. The sourcing, have separate leads for cutover, data validation, your reporting. So you have each person responsible for his or her area. Have knowledgeable implementation partners work with you. And if possible, sign up for SAP customer care programs, because when you're on, say, FPS 00, that being the first version of any S4, a lot of issues do come up. And if you're able to reach out to the SAP customer care through a program, it makes it a lot easier. And changes, whatever change you make in your development, pre-conversion or post-conversion, ensure that you capture them in transports, because when you're doing your production conversion, bringing them in as transport is the right thing to do. Testing and mock conversions. Have a very clear-cut testing strategy, testing plan. Try to include all the important scenarios in your testing strategies. Have more mocks than you think is required, and execute a full month-end test in your mock conversions. Have more data validations, and set mock conversion expectations, because when you say run about 4 or 5 mocks, before you start the mock conversion, have very clear-cut expectations with your partner, implementation partner, and also within your IT team on what you expect to achieve in each mock, because the requirement, what you achieve in each mock, might be a little different depending on how close you are to the production conversion. Again, errors and defects that come out during the conversion or as part of the testing. Expect a large number of defects, document them, have a proper tool wherein you can document all these defects, document the solutions to those, and the defect resolution. So let's have a quick poll at this point, and while I share with you the results of the previous poll. We'll open up the floor for questions, and I request you to put the questions in the chat area, so we'll see, we can go ahead to address those specific questions that you may have. And we will send you the recorded version of this webinar as well. And if you'd like to reach out to us, please do let us know, and then we can do a one-on-one and discuss in more detail with you. Okay, the first question from Chris Bather. When comparing conversion to S4 and greenfield implementation, how is historical transaction data handled? Okay, in conversion, all the data that you have in ECC moves to S4. You don't have a choice. You will take all the data in ECC automatically using the SAP standard tools. Everything gets converted to S4. You don't have a choice there. With respect to implementation, the greenfield implementation, what really happens is you will have to decide how much of legacy data you're going to move forward. Obviously, you'll take all the open transactions, and you could take the financial balances of the previous years. But beyond that, based on your statutory requirement, you will have to decide how much of data you're going to take forward. If your legacy system is non-ECC, if it is going to be any other system, then you would have a clear migration strategy on what data you would need. But this is more a business decision on how much data is required. But if it's an ECC, we suggest that you take only the historical balances, financial balances of the previous years, and then take the open transactions. However, depending on individual customer requirements, we can work with you on those. The second question, how do we address the business case or viability to move to S/4HANA? See, just converting, doing a lift and shift and moving to S4, that might not give you a business case. So that is the reason why when I said in the discover or assess phase, you will have to come up with an IT roadmap to explain how you're going to use the new functionalities, how you're going to use the innovations, the IoT, the AI, ML, all that will have to be put in the IT roadmap. So that is the only way you would be able to justify a business case. If it's just an IT reasoning, 2 or 3 reasons. If you're in the middle, if you're planning for a hardware refresh, maybe this is the right time to do. Or if you're planning to get rid of the data center, move everything to an IaaS provider, then that is the right thing to do. But a business case, I would definitely suggest that you consult with digital transformation providers and help you build a roadmap to build a case around that. That question is from Arifin Rahmat. I hope I answered your question. The next question from Chris, can SEM be converted or migrated to S4, or is S4 only for ECC? S4 is only for ECC. So S4 is not for SEM. Next question from Mr. Zia. Do you mean it needs a lot of technical efforts? Technical efforts, yes, from the basis, depending on your custom code, how much of custom code will have to be remediated, and also on the integration touch points. But I would suggest that you have very strong functional people as well who are on the finance, on the logistics side to be able to handle that. The next question from Mr. Rahman. Can we do S/4HANA conversion on cloud or only on premise? If your source system is on premise, then your target should typically be on premise. The reason being, you don't want to do this conversion process across networks. But if you plan to go on the cloud as an IaaS provider like HEC, AWS, or GCP, I suggest you first migrate your source also to the cloud there and do it. But if you're talking about the S/4HANA public cloud, only new implementation is an option. You cannot convert your ECC on-premise to S/4HANA public cloud. The next question from Mr. Sanjay. How S/4HANA will take care of existing interfaces, BizTalk with third-party systems? Rather than saying how it would take care, let me explain to you how it works. Earlier, through ECC, you were connecting to BizTalk. Now, through S4, you'll have to connect to BizTalk. What the conversion project should deal with is primarily only that whatever data you are providing to your third-party system, you should continue to provide that from your S4 system in the same format. And then that way, you will minimize the impact on all your third-party system. So you will have to definitely look at your interface programs on how they extract the data. Assuming you are extracting data and providing 15 fields in a particular sequence, we suggest that you redo that program in S4 and try to bring those fields across to your third-party system. Or if that particular table itself has gone obsolete, then you'll have to know where you will have to get that data from. The next question from Mr. Lakshman. Have you consolidated SAP CRM in S4 HANA CRM add-ons? I believe I'll have to get back to you. I don't understand the context of that question. So Mr. Lakshman, we'll reach out to you directly. One from Mr. Mohammed Arshid. How can we reduce the process duration of the system conversion? Primarily, when you talk about duration, I'm not too sure if you're talking about the system downtime or the conversion project itself. So I think it's more around the business downtime. So let me address the business downtime. The size of your database definitely decides your business downtime, number one. Number two, your validation. If you have tools for validation, it will go much faster. Number three, if you have run your mock runs enough number of times and you have all your fixes in transports, then that will make it a lot easier. Number four, a very clear cutover strategy on how you're going to ramp up and ramp down. So these four things is something that you should look at before you embark on this conversion. But if you're talking about a project timeline, I believe that depends from customer to customer, because that's going to be very specific to the customer, depending on the complexity of your current system, what you plan to adapt, your interfaces, and so on. The next question from Mr. Gisef. Do you think it's a functional or a technical upgrade? I would say it's more a functional upgrade than a technical upgrade, given that a lot of simplification happens when you move from ECC to S4. The next question from Mr. Zia. Historical data is important for me. What do you think is easy for me to go with S4 HANA without any data loss? If you want all your historical data, Mr. Zia, I suggest going for the conversion, where during the conversion, nothing gets lost. Everything goes from ECC to S4. Every single byte, every single bit goes from ECC to S4. The next question from Mr. Siddharth. How are the ECC tables converted to Universal Journal? Mr. Siddharth, I'm not a finance person, so I will pass this question and I'll have my finance expert reach out to you directly. Mr. Linu Varghese, he has a question which says, will there be any GUI difference between ECC and HANA? See, if you continue to use transactions in the SAP GUI on S4 HANA, then there will not be any difference except for some key transactions in the finance areas. But if you choose to use your Fiori, yes, there is a lot of difference. But primarily, not much of difference, maybe about 5 to 10% changes that you would see on the S4 HANA GUI screens. The next is from Mr. Kishore. What framework guideline is used in regard to hardening of OS during S4 HANA conversion? Basically, both SLES and RHEL, those two versions of Linux, come with a version for SAP. So I suggest getting the right license and working with your OEM to get that hardened. So, but there are OSS notes available that talks about the various fixes, security patches that will have to be done. My point is, we have SAP CRM running on separate instance. When we migrate to S4 HANA, we want to discontinue CRM landscape and leverage on S4 HANA CRM add-ons. Yes, that can be done, sir. So we will have to do a fit gap analysis to understand the current processes that you're using in CRM and map it to the processes available on S4. And that's what will ensure that you don't lose out on business processes and you can start using them on S4. The next question from Mr. Marcelo. Starting from various instances on 7.4, 7.3C, ECC, the only option is a new implementation and not conversion. I don't believe so. You can, any version of ECC 6, EHP, any version can be converted to S4. So maybe I'm not getting the question right. I will reach out to you, Mr. Marcelo. Next question from Mr. Mohammed. Can we reduce data? I mean, achieve first and then start. Yes, that is the recommendation. And you can reduce your data by various means. Either archive your data, clean up all your logs, clean up all your iDocs that you don't need anymore, and see how much you can crunch your data before you start the exercise. The next is from Vivek. How about the business function set already activated in ECC? Yeah, the business function sets, there are 3 types. And there is the one business function set that's called always off. If you have that in your ECC system, then that means S4 is not yet ready for that business function set and you cannot move forward. The other two options of business function set, the always on and the customer develop, those can be converted. Next question from Mr. Abdul Rahman. In S4 HANA, HADR is system replication. The system replication that you would set up for HADR is very similar to what you would do in your traditional databases. And this replication is done at the HANA database level. So you would have your primary system, you would have your secondary, which is your DR, and then you set up data replication from your primary to your secondary. And you have parameters to tell you how frequently they have to be copied, and that's set up as part of system replication. LSMW is not available on the S4 HANA public cloud. Mr. Siddharth, your question was, is LSMW available in S4 HANA? Okay, from the next question from Murali. Is it easier to use RPA tool on top of S4 HANA? I'm sorry, sir, I am not too sure about the answer. We will reach out to you. The next is from Mr. Alam Ansari. Custom code management, RISEF and code. If OSS nodes are implemented, do we comply to this requirement? See, when OSS nodes are implemented, when you come through the sum phase, there is a place where you have to adjust. You get into the SPDD, SPAU transaction in basis, where you'll have to accept with the SAP new codes of SAP. So you will, it's like that process is similar to your EHP upgrade. So you accept the changes that SAP has brought forward. However, if you have made some modifications, then you will have to put a red flag there and see if you want to continue to use that modification in S4. Next question from Mr. Rahman. Will CAR be able to do POC before we do actual conversion or new installation? Yes, Mr. Rahman, we can work with you on that to understand your requirement and see how we can take it forward. We can host it on our cloud on a copy of your system, and we can definitely do that. The last question, I think, from Mr. Mohammed. How to know if my ECC system is ready to move to S4? Sir, I suggest you run the readiness check, and that will give you any indication if there is any showstopper. So that would be your first step. And then you can have your basis people also run the maintenance planner. So these are the two things I would suggest that you run. And even before you go to a service provider, that will give you an indication if you can get started. I believe that's the last question I have. So thanks, gentlemen, for attending the webinar. It was a pleasure. We'll definitely reach out to those for whom I did not have answers, or if you need more clarity. And any further questions, please do reach out to us and we will answer it to the best of our ability. Thanks again and have a good day.